Hello, and welcome to the Brutal Iron Gym podcast, where our goal is to cut through the BS and deliver the brutal truth about topics related to health and happiness. Today's podcast number 2079. The topic is training, and the title is, How Many Exercises Do I Need Per Workout? One of my clients is a business client. He's a personal trainer, and we're working together to create client workout templates so he can plug and play to create on-the-fly personalized workouts per client. What all that meant is he wanted it to be able to create more personalized workouts per client, but not have to pre-write all these different workouts. He wanted to be able to make them up on the fly, like mentally, as each person comes in. He wants to be able to kind of just make up the workouts as he goes. Now, this is actually how I did my personal training forever. So when I was younger, like 16, 17, 18, when I was training myself and training friends, I would write out the workouts. I would experiment with prescribed ideas. And then very quickly I started learning, you can have a plan for the day, but sometimes certain things feel better than other things, or certain stuff doesn't work. Maybe equipment isn't available. There's a lot of reasons why what you had pre-planned may not be the best option anymore. So this client, we were discussing constraints and considerations when it came to exercise selection. So they have clients that have 30-minute sessions versus 60-minute sessions. So that's going to be a big difference. You can do, more workouts, more exercises, in 60 minutes than you can in 30. Also, physical readiness per client. Some clients are physically fit. They come in and start doing fun, aggressive stuff right away. Other clients are not physically fit, and you might spend the majority of the session just trying to get them to neutral in regards to muscular tightness and working on small postural and corrective therapy type things. You don't really get into some big stuff because they're just not ready for that yet. You also have teaching time considerations. Some clients you're going to have to teach more, so therefore you have to have more time to talk, which means you're going to do less total movements. Available equipment. If you're training like this trainer trains out of a commercial gym where other trainers and other people train, so what they want isn't always available, so they have to be able to modify that. And then the scope of the session. What are you training that day? Are you training multiple body parts, singular body part? Are you training for strength, muscle growth, endurance, explosiveness, athletic performance? What in the world are you training for? There are so many things that would go into the challenges that a person would face putting together the correct workout for that day. Often, whenever you have a prescribed thing that you want to do, it has goods and bads. If you train at home, you're probably fine. You're going to get the equipment you want available. You already know what equipment you have. It's going to be much easier. If you train at commercial gyms, it's going to be much harder. When I've trained at commercial gyms for various reasons over the years, it can be challenging. Just a funny one story. I remember there was an older gentleman. I was doing a chest workout, and this was at a Lifetime Fitness, and they have a lot of different machines. So I was like, okay, I'm kind of planning out the different machines, and I saw there was one that offered a really good stretch. There was another machine that I knew I'd used before, and I was like, that's going to be really good for kind of the inner chest. So I was like, let me go ahead and come on over here. I'm going to get started on this thing, do like cable crossovers, kind of warm up my chest. I then want to go into that inside chest one, get a good chest pump in the inside tightness, and then I'm going to go to that one that pulls you open nice and wide. So I was like, okay, I got this planned out. And so I did the first two movements. I go to get on the third one. I did 2 sets, and it was just like one warm-up set, one kind of testing my weight set. And this guy walked over and he goes, how many more sets you have? I said, I actually just got started. I haven't done any working sets yet. Would you want to work in with me? I don't know why I said that. Of course I didn't want him to work in with me. I was trying to be polite, but stupid. He said, no. He goes, I'll just wait till you're done. And then he proceeded to just stand there. Literally didn't move. And just stood. And like the arch of the machine, because it's a chest fly machine, he maybe was like 12 inches away from where the arch would be. So it was awkward. I could count his nose hairs if I wanted to. That's how close he was. So I did a set, and I looked up at him, and I go, I'm going to be taking like 2-minute rest, man. Like, do you want Do you want to work in with me? I don't mind. He said, no, I'll just wait. And I said, it's kind of weird with you standing here. And then it was just awkward, like dead silence. So I was like, okay, he's an asshole, and he's just trying to make me feel weird, so I'll leave. So I was like, well, buddy, I can be an asshole right back. So I sat there and took my full 2-minute breaks and did 2 more working sets. So I was in a grumpy mood. But that was an example where I probably should have walked away, but I was being a grump. And I was just annoyed because I was like, this is going to be a really good workout. You're screwing up my workout, man. But I sat there, and he just stood there literally the entire time. It was probably 8 minutes or so. But, hey, picked the wrong. Oh, I am so stubborn. That was probably a horrible character moment. I have no clue. But that was an example where that stuff can happen. Somebody can get in on your machine, or they can be doing stuff in a commercial gym. Maybe a trainer's on something and they're taking forever. I've asked people if they were done with something and they said no, then they proceeded to not really do anything for 10 minutes. And I'm like, oh, good gosh. So it could be absolute chaos. Good gosh. Commercial gyms are trash in certain ways. But that's me being fancy pants, as if like people have a choice. The commercial gyms are great if you have no choice, because there's actually a variety of machines, usually so much variety that you could, if you weren't a stubborn jackass like me, switch from one chest fly machine to another chest fly machine. You'd be totally fine. Like the hours are probably pretty good. They might have other amenities. If you're a single parent, maybe they offer childcare. There's a lot of other stuff. Maybe they have showers, and that's helpful for you, so you can shower after work or before work. But so try to be back to being politically correct and not stubborn. Commercial gyms can be helpful. But that is some of the challenge. I went off on a tangent there. When you're trying to put together good workouts, and especially for this client, they want to do good personalized ones. They really want their clients to enjoy the workout and have the workout be exactly what they need. What they didn't want is the existing trainers at this facility kind of all put their clients through the same workout. And my client is like, that's obviously trash. I want to be better than that. And that'll help me pull in more people. That'll help me. They're not necessarily like on purpose trying to steal clients from the other trainers. They just know if they do better workouts, that people are going to search them out. So that's their goal, is, can I just be above the rest, and by actually doing it just the way you're supposed to? How sad is that? Good gosh. But this is what we're working on. I'm way too chatty today. I had too much caffeine. So if you're thinking of how many workouts do you need per workout, let's get back to the actual topic here. There's a lot of things to consider. My answer for the client was, don't pre-specify. Let's create a template and then adjust that per client. Meaning, if your question is how many exercises should I do per workout, I wouldn't want, don't just say 3 or 5 or 6 and then think that's a number you have to stick to all the time. In no way whatsoever does there have to be a prescribed number. So I presented him with questions that we would want to ask ourselves as we're putting together a workout. Now, these are focused from a trainer's point of view, but you can focus on yourself. You can be the trainer for yourself when you're putting together a workout. So, do they need to warm up? If the client needs to warm up for what you're about to do, then you got to take the time to do that. If they don't really need to warm up, so for example, on that chest workout at the commercial gym, I wanted to do the chest flies, and then there was the second machine was a press, and how it targeted the inner chest was, it was a converging chest press. It wasn't a very wide convergence, but it was a nice narrow at the inside edge. So I was like, I know I'm going to get really good on that. But that's a press, that's a heavier dominant movement. And then the flies at the end, I wanted to do very heavy because I knew they were going to be a good pull and stretch. So the first movement, I did cable crossovers. I did a couple sets of 20, couple sets of 15, a couple hard sets of 10 to 12. So my warm-up was the first movement. For other things like squats, I am not going to just get under a barbell and start squatting and count that as my warm-up. Those days are gone. It's not intelligent to do, and I don't want to do that anymore. Back, 16, 17, 18, I could have if I wanted to. I didn't even do that back then because no one in the magazine said to do that. Everybody said you got to warm up. Got to warm up your knees. Got to pre-exhaust. You want muscle growth. So I never really was the type to just get under a bar and start moving. There's tons and tons of reasons as to why that wouldn't be the best approach, to just start with the bar and start moving. When you're looking at like free weight based movements, think of squat, bench, deadlift, you probably want to warm up some stuff, get some blood flow to the joints, maybe even work on postural correcting. So for example, in the bench press, you want to make sure your chest is tight, make sure your shoulders are nice and loose and ready to go so you can get into proper external rotation and blah, 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 blah. But the idea is the larger, more aggressive movement of the day that you're going to do, the more you would need to have some kind of warm-up or preparation. So this is something we ask is, do I need to warm up? Based on what is my big aggressive movement of the day, and or based on the client. If the client's stiff, weak, out of shape, they're going to need more preparation. If they're not, they're going to need less. So there's an individual component to that. But that's the first question. Do they need a warm-up? The second question is, what's our big movement of the day? So this is helpful for us to know, and I'm going to expand on that in a second, is if my big movement is more aggressive, I may need even more of a warm-up, or I might need to do something before I get into that, or I might need a cueing exercise. So if somebody is struggling to stay on their heels and hinge properly during a squat, maybe they try to stay too upright, their knees go forward, their heels lift off the ground, their squat, they're just not hinging correctly at the hips. Then you might do a cueing movement before you get into squats. So you have your warm-ups, but then you have a cueing movement where you maybe teach them how to hinge at their hips. Just a bodyweight RDL, or like a lightweight RDL, or good morning, or what's called a tall cobra, which is a good exercise for postural control as well. But there are a lot of things that we would modify or adjust based on what our big movement of the day is going to be. Then we can ask, the third question is, what can we add that complements the big movement and or touches the other goals of the day? So I'm going to go through and explain that a little bit. But those are the three questions I gave the trainer when we're trying to figure out, okay, how many exercises do I need? Well, do they need a warm-up? What's the big movement of the day? And then what am I going to add to either help the big movement or touch on the other goals if they have multiple goals in the workout? So we look at the first question, do they need a warm-up? Yes, no. You tell me. If they do, there's probably going to be something in there for hips, core, and shoulders. We've talked about this. I talked about podcast 1112 a lot. You can find that older podcast through our website, www.brutalirongym.com. Scroll down on the homepage. There's a podcast player that goes back 300 episodes. Underneath that are instructions on how to find older podcasts. You can just search the number 1112, and it's titled The Best Warm-Up Routine. And it talks about how if you're going to warm up the body, if you're going to get the body ready for movement, you want to do something that opens up range of motion and strengthens the small muscles of the hips, something that strengthens the core, and something that opens up range of motion and strengthens the small muscles of the shoulders. If you take care of those three things, you're good to go. Then for the client, I said it's good to have quick and in-depth options. So quick 2 or 3 movements, usually dynamic, not static movements, and no rests. So an example I had them do was leaning over Cossack squats, and you can just search that on YouTube, by the way, paired with windmill toe touchers with a thoracic reach. And again, you can search that on YouTube if you'd like. But that's the leaning over Cossack squats is going to open up the glutes, the adductors, warm up the ankles, the knees, and the core because you're bent over in a certain position. And then windmill toe touchers with thoracic reach is again core. It's again going to help open up the adductors, but it's going to start to activate and challenge the core muscles, and it's going to help open up tightness in the front side of the shoulders, and it's going to contract the muscles of the upper back to do the thoracic reach, so that's going to take care of the shoulder joint. So just those 2 movements, you're going to do 10 reps of leaning over Cossack squats, 10 reps of the toe touchers with thoracic reach. Take a breath or 2, do it again, breath or 2, do it again. Literally under 4 minutes, you're done. Move on. You can also have an in-depth option, which we're usually going to do one movement per focus. So something specifically for hips, something specifically for core, something specific for shoulders. And they can definitely be static if needed, because if somebody's more tight and weak, and they might need more of that type approach, so this is going to be a longer. You might do cross-legged glute stretch, which you might hold for 30 to 60 seconds per side. Then quadruped scapular retractions, which is really good for a person having mind-muscle connection and awareness of how to contract and squeeze their back, which a lot of people, when they're weak or stiff, they don't know how to do that very well. And then you would have maybe bird dog crunches, which is really good for like working on supporting structures in the shoulder and hip socket while activating and challenging the core. You might do 3 rounds of that. That might end up taking 9 to 12 minutes, somewhere in there. So you have some quick options, 2 or 3 minutes. Some in-depth options might take longer, but that gives you some freedom depending on the client. You might come in and say, hey, I don't need a warm-up at all. We can just use the first movement of the workout as the warm-up. Or, hey, let's do a little bit of a warm-up. That's the quick, dirty stuff. Leaning over Cossack squats, windmill toe touchers with thoracic reach, 3 rounds, in and out, 3 or 4 minutes. Or you might say, okay, this person's stiff. We got a lot of corrective work to do on posture. Let's really dig in. Let's take our time, 10, 12 minutes. It could even take longer if you wanted. But it's good to know that you have options and kind of a spectrum to use within that component of the workout. You either skip it completely or you spend a large amount of time in it. Then we say, okay, what's our big movement of the day? Well, it depends. What are you focusing on that day? If it's full body, you're going to need more than one movement, unless your client can do, clean and press. Maybe that would cover a little bit of everything. But typically, you're going to want something for legs, something for push, something for pull. So you might have 3 big movements in the day, and that might take the entire workout. Or maybe you're just doing legs. So maybe your big movement is going to be a squat or a deadlift. If you're doing maybe just a push workout, your big movement might be, chest press of some kind. You're going to figure that out, kind of pay attention to that, and you want to make sure those things are covered. That's the bread and butter, the bulk, the good stuff in the workout. Make sure you have that covered. And again, you cover it whether it's 1 movement, 2 movements, 3 movements. Typically, we would want to use the least number of movements possible to cover all the goals, assuming that the movement covers each goal very well. So let's nitpick a bit on, say, a clean and press. And let's say the person's going to clean the bar from the floor, and they're going to actually do, don't hate me for saying this, but a squat clean. I know. It's not a power clean, basically. So they're going to drive it off the floor, bring it up into a front rack position, squat to parallel to catch that, and then maybe they just drive right up into the press from there. So it's almost like a thruster. That is going to be really good for the lower body. It's going to challenge the upper back in a supportive manner, but not necessarily in a full range of motion like a cable seated row would be. So it challenges the back, but it might not be as full of amount of back work as it would be for the legs. And you're going to generate the drive force, the press force through the legs, not so much the pushing muscles. So a clean and press where you go to the squat position at the catch and then you drive to overhead, that's essentially a lower body and core movement. And then you're going to be challenging the musculature stability of the shoulders. But it isn't going to necessarily build your pressing strength. It's not going to necessarily build your pulling strength. It can help to develop the musculature of the upper body decently well, for sure. But is it going to be as effective for pressing muscles, strength, and growth as a dumbbell chest press would be? No. Is it going to be as beneficial for strength and growth of the back muscles as a heavy cable seated row? No. So I could use the clean and press as a full body example, but if the person really wants a massive upper body, they really want big upper body muscles, that's probably not going to be the best choice, right? So these are the considerations we would make is I do want the fewest movements possible, but I don't want to just aim for the few movements possible as the main focus more than actually challenging the muscles I want to develop. So I want to make sure if I really want to challenge my push muscles, I account for that. Now, do I need to challenge my push muscles with a barbell press, a dumbbell press, both chest presses and an overhead press in the same workout? Probably not, especially if I still want to do the rest of my whole body. That's going to be way too damn many exercises, right? So if I want to challenge my push muscles correctly and thoroughly, I want to pick something that's specific for them. So maybe a 15-degree incline chest press as opposed to a clean and press, right? Then the third question we had was, what can we add that complements the big movement and or touches the other goals? Well, how much time do you have left? That could be super helpful to know. If I have a short amount of time, maybe I'm going to pick just a single compound movement. If I have more time, I could pick multiple isolation movements. What else do they need? Do they want to cover muscular endurance? Do they want to cover explosiveness? They probably should have done that before strength. But what are their other goals? So you want to make sure you cover those things in the fewest movements possible, because that saves time. It's helpful to limit the exercises you use. The fewer the better, because you spend less time in transition, in exercise setup, in technique refinement. You have less wasted time. So you do want fewer movements if there's an option to do so. So an example, let's say you're doing a full body workout. You would do your movement prep circuit if you needed to. Let's say you're going to do squats as your main leg workout, leg movement. Well, then yes, you're going to do some kind of movement prep. You're going to open up the adductors, open up the glutes, help get the thoracic spine, the shoulders and all that warmed up. So maybe you would do that quick dynamic warm up, that leaning over Cossack squats, windmill toe touches with thoracic reach. Then you go ahead, get under the bar, start moving around. Now, you can do squats by themselves if your focus is on strength, maximal weight load. Maybe your focus is just on muscle damage, so you can pair with squats maybe something that's complementary, like a step up or walking lunges. Something that adds volume but is a lighter weight load. So that way the squats can stay heavy, but you're still getting in volume on the lower body in different angles, different positions, especially if you're doing a squat where you're using both legs at the same time. Pairing together a unilateral movement is helpful for better overall development. But that's the idea, is if I want to focus just on squat strength, I'll do it by itself. If I want to focus on volume, then I can add something that's a low weight load complement. That would be typically unilateral, and that's helpful. Then after squats, maybe I go into push and pulls. Maybe I'll just do some dumbbell chest presses with a one-arm dumbbell row. Done. So I had a former client that I used to work with, older population, and we would do deadlifts on the belt squat as her main lower body movement, and then we would pair that with step-ups on the front side of the belt squat. The belt squat had like a little bit of a lift to it. I think it was like 12 inches or so. So we would just do deadlifts on the belt squat and then bodyweight step-ups, and that was working to drive without any hand assistance, to drive through the heel to step up. So she did a great job. She loved that part. And then we would go do dumbbell chest presses in one-arm dumbbell rows, or dumbbell overhead presses in one-arm dumbbell rows, and that would be basically the entire workout. So by the time I got her in, we would do rower, concept 2 rower for 2 or 3 minutes, and that would be kind of her warm-up. Then we did the deadlifts on the belt squat with the step-ups, and then we went to dumbbell chest press or overhead press with a one-arm dumbbell row. That was her whole workout. That was an hour. She was a chatty Cathy. So by the time I could get her to stop talking, pay attention to what the hell she was doing, that was what we got through. We got through 5 exercises in an hour. Hurts my soul, but that's what we got. I have other clients that do 5 workouts in 20 minutes, so it really depends. But that's just an example of a full body workout that I would do with that client. If you do a lower body workout, for example, maybe you can spend more time. Maybe after the squats, you could go into leg press or hack squat or leg curls or leg extensions, or You could save that separate movement like we talked about the step-ups or walking lunges. You could do those completely after the squats. That way you can do it nice and heavy. Maybe you want to add in more cardio stuff. So maybe you add sled push, sled pulls, tire flips, things like that. But those are all the complement kind of other things. They're what you do at the end of the workout. But that's kind of the idea is when we're thinking through how many exercises do I need. Well, what do you want to do? Number one is, do they have to warm up? If you have to warm up, well, then you're going to need at least 1, 2, or 3 exercises. Something that addresses the hips, the core, and the shoulders. Whether you can do that 1 movement, 2 movements, or 3. You can do it quick. You can do it in depth, depending on whatever you need. Then you have your big movement of the day. Well, am I doing just legs? Am I doing just push? Am I doing just pull? Or am I doing all those? So that determines whether you have 1, 2, or 3. And then what do you add after that depends on how much time you have. Depends on what other goals you have. If you don't have any other goals, then you just keep strength focus. If you have other goals like cardiovascular endurance or muscular endurance, then you add fun, weird, goofy, circuity things, and that adds to it. So you can have a workout that can be as few as 1, 2 exercises. You could have a workout that could be up around 5, 6, even 7 or 8 exercises. Really, what you want to do is figure out what's the fewest number of movements I need to attend to everything that's needed. Warm up, big movement of the day, and then a complementary movements. Just for my workouts, I do more bodybuilding type stuff right now. So my recent chest workout was cable chest flies, dumbbell incline presses, and then barbell incline reverse band press. That's it. 3 movements. My recent leg workout was a glute and adductor stretch. I did a glute stretch first, then paired it with an adductor stretch. That's 2 movements. I then supersetted the hack squat and a Rogers Squat Pro, which were both quad dominant squats, which was horrendous but fantastic. So that's another 2 movements. So that's 4 total. And then I finished with the barbell RDLs. So that's 5 exercises. My recent back workout, I supersetted dumbbell chest supported rows and cable banded seated rows. I did those back to back to back to back. So that's just 2 movements. And then I finished with paused lat pull downs. So that's 3 exercises. So I have workouts that I'll do 3, sometimes do 5. I did an arm workout the other day that had 3 biceps, 3 triceps. There were 6 exercises in it. It really depends on what your goals are. If somebody's doing more like functional fitness type stuff, you might have 2 or 3 warm-up exercises. Then maybe you're doing, trap bar carries into depth, like box jumps into barbell squats. So maybe you have 2 or 3 warm-ups, then you have a circuit of those 3 things, trap bar carries, box jumps, and squats. So that's another 3 exercises. So maybe you have 6 exercises total. That's it. But the idea is, again, to use the fewest exercises that still covers all of your needs. You don't sacrifice the needs just to have few exercises. Make sure the needs are met, but meet them with the fewest exercises. Again, that's less time spent in transitions, setups, technique refinement, adjusting weights, all that stuff. Then you want to make sure how you're covering everything is, does there need to be a warm-up? If yes, then make sure you address the hips, the core, and the shoulders. If no, then that's fine. Move on to the big stuff for the day. The big movement of the day, you can have it by itself. You can have it paired with a complementary movement, or even a cueing exercise, something that teaches you how to do the big movement better. And then you have, at the end, what can add to the big movement and or touch the other goals of the day. So your workouts can be 1, 2, 3, 7, 8 exercises. That's fine. There really doesn't have to be a predetermined number. You just want to kind of say, what do I need out of today? What's the fewest number of exercises I can meet those needs? And that's it. Awesome. Well, if you want to see some examples of workouts that I would have written for clients, you can go to our website, www.brutalirongym.com. You can go to Program Examples, and there you can actually view and print a full month example. We have one client, their goal is fat loss, shaping, and mobility. Another client was a powerlifter with their weekend workouts had to be not in a gym. Another client, they wanted to do bodybuilding, but they were recovering from severe injuries after a car crash. Another example is bodybuilding with high volume to promote fat loss. So bodybuilding, but a lot of volume. And then another program example is combined program for powerlifting and marathons. So you can see some examples of how I put together my workouts and how I address these questions, the basic needs for each individual client. The exercise selections are different. The exact number of exercises per workout are different, but there's a lot of common threads, as in we prepare them for the big movement of the day, we have the big movement of the day, and then we do other stuff that addresses the other goals of the day. Awesome. So you can view and print those workouts, try any of them if you want. If you're interested in one-on-one services, just reach out. You can learn more about the services on our website, but you can also just reach out to me and just ask any questions. Let me know what your needs are, and I can advise you as to what might be the best approach. We have tons of free stuff, and then you can also pay for the help. I hope that I always come across as willing to help people for pay, of course, but willing to help people for free. There's always free information. I mean, I've done 2,079 of these things. I really, really, really want you to never have money be the reason why you can't be physically fit and happy and feeling good. I hope everybody feels that whatever they need is available to them. If you can't find it, I'll always make a podcast for people. So you have me. If you've listened to this far in the podcast, if you listen to the podcast on a regular basis, you have a free personal trainer and nutritionist. If you have any questions, just let me know and I'll make you a podcast totally for free. It's a hell of a service, I think. I would hope. I hope it's valuable. But I also hope that you take advantage of it if you don't yet and you have questions. Please, please, please let me know. Reach out. You can send me a message on our website, www.brutalirongym.com. On the bottom of the homepage is a contact form. You can send me any questions you want anytime. I answer everybody's email back in 2 weeks or less. Okay, if you like the podcast, please share the podcast. The more people we share it with, the more people can help. If you like the podcast, please consider donating to support the podcast, which you can do on the website. Also, if you like the information we share in the podcast, you can find more from us on our social media channels. You can find us and follow us on Instagram and YouTube under the name Brutal Iron Gym. As always, I hope this was helpful, and thank you for listening.